Hello, welcome to the kitchen lab experiment for emulsions. A few of the bits are a little bit more tricky this week than from last week, so I'm going to record myself doing them and hopefully that will help you. We've got everything set up here now. I've got 4 identical glasses. Whatever you use doesn't have to be identical. It's just nice to see the difference. And I've got 3 different soaps here that we're going to use to see how each one of them acts and which one's best and which one's worse at making different emulsions. I've also just got normal sunflower oil to use as the oil part, and I'll just put my water in this jug here. And we need a large spoon, a smaller spoon and a bowl. That's just so we can just keep things together. So the first stage, we want to see how water and oil react and interact with each other. So if we just pour some water into a glass, enough so we've got the same amount for each of the 4 different containers, glasses. And then we're going to measure out some oil into there. And we should see that, as you might already know, we put 2 dessert spoons in there of oil. That the oil and the water won't mix. You can see that there, hopefully, the 2 separate layers. Now, even if we mix that, you can see that once it stops having the force of mixing, very quickly we get 2 separate layers again. As you can see, there's 2 separate layers there. So what are we going to do about that? That's where these different soaps are going to come in. And we need to get them mixed well enough and with enough force that will create those tiny droplets that I talk about in the accompanying sheet to this kitchen lab. So we're going to do different surfactants, and I'm going to start with washing up liquid. Okay, so take your oil, and we're going to put the same amount of oil in here as we started out with this control glass over here. So we've got that control that we can compare everything against later. So I'm going to put the same amount into my bowl. 1, 2 dessert spoons of oil. And then some soap, or what I call a surfactant. This is the material where the molecule, the small bits that make it all up, has got one side that likes water and one side that likes oil. And we're going to use that to force this oil and this water to sort of cohabit, although not fully mix. So I'm going to put 1. Takes a while to come off, might need a bit of encouragement. Okay. 2 teaspoons of that in there. You might want to use the back of another spoon maybe to scrape it off. So we end up with the oil and the soap or surfactant in the bowl, and then we want to give that a really vigorous mix with the back of the spoon. And you'll notice that from being a clear colour, transparent, that we get a milky looking solution at the bottom there. We really want to put some force and effort into this, because this is where we're going to start making the oil droplets. And we need those oil droplets to be so small that moving through the water becomes really hard, and that this surfactant, this soap surrounding them, can keep them separate in the water, so we get a good mixture of them, even though the oil isn't going to dissolve in the water. So now we need to add a little bit of water, a little bit more water. There's already some water in this. A little bit at a time. So I just put 1 dessert spoon in there, and you can see that initially they don't mix. But now we need to get that soap, that surfactant, acting again. And we're going to make a nice smooth milk like liquid. So that's already pouring very easily. So what I'm going to do is pour that straight into the first glass. And then using the spoon, I'm going to slowly top that up to have the same amount of overall liquid as that first control glass that we did. Perfect. So what you can see now is two different experiments, let's call them. The one here on the right, we've got oil and water and they've not mixed. And the one on the right, the left here, sorry, my right, we've got what looks like a white milky substance. And that's because of the surfactant, the soap in there, that's keeping those tiny little droplets of oil, it's forcing them into the water. With one side, with one arm, it's holding onto the oil droplet, and with the other arm, it's holding into the water. But different soaps and different surfactants will be able to do that better or worse, depending on what we want them to do. And as I leave those here, hopefully I can leave them so the camera can see them. As I leave those here, you should notice that the oil and the water do still separate where we've got that amount of soap in there. And that's why we're going to use some different soaps and different surfactants as well to see if any of them are better or worse. So next up, I'm going to use some laundry liquid, Bold 2-in-1, other brands are available, and we're going to do exactly the same procedure. So I'm going to take 2 dessert spoons of my vegetable oil, put those in there, and then put 2 teaspoons, if I can, without letting it slip out of my hand, of oil, 2 teaspoons of detergent, laundry detergent, or soap in there. So these are different soaps, they're made for different jobs. This one's made for washing up, this one's made for getting all of the stains out of your clothes, so they should act differently. Again, you can see this is what we start out with, and then we give them a good vigorous crushing mix with the back of the spoon. We start to get that cloudy looking solution again, suspension, mixture, that cloudy looking mixture. And we want to give that a little bit of force, just like we did with the last one, to make sure we're breaking up all those droplets to as small as they can be. Okay. And you can see at this point that we're starting to get a massive amount of separation here on the one which we made with the washing up liquid, looking like dirty washing up liquid water. So now we just need to add a small amount of water. This is the one with the laundry detergent. Again, get that mixed up nicely. And I'm going to put that directly into my next glass. And then top up with water again. So just a little bit more water needed there. There we go. Okay, so let's put these all next to each other. And I'll just give my spoon a wipe so we don't contaminate the different ones. I'll start here and move my way across, we'll mix them all together and see what happens. So the first one mixing, just wipe the spoon. Second one mixing, you can see it started to stay together better. Wipe the spoon again. And then the last one, give it a good mix. We can see that we've got on the left a completely separated mixture. In the middle we can see it's already starting to separate, but that washing up liquid is slowing it down. And on the right, even slower, this one is taking even longer to separate because that surfactant's holding those droplets in the water much better, making it a better emulsion. And then we could do the same thing again with any other surfactant, for example shower gel, if you like, and you can compare how long it takes for each of the emulsions that you make to separate out. So for those droplets to come together and get out of the water like they want to, and how slow that happens tells you how good that soap is at making that little droplet of oil and stabilising it in the water.